Okay, so let's start. So good evening. Welcome to this webinar on boosting your LinkedIn skills with generative AI. I'm Dries Vaams, professor at WHU, and I will try in this webinar to give you some illustrations on how you can actually leverage generative AI for different LinkedIn applications. So this is part of our WHU Startup School workshops. In the past, we have done 2 more workshops on generative AI. In May 2023, we did the first one introducing some overall business applications for generative AI. In October, we did a workshop on building startups and ventures with generative AI. And so this is our 3rd workshop where we want to focus on how can you actually leverage LinkedIn using generative AI. We will organize the webinar in the same way as we did the past 2 times. So I will first kind of give a presentation where I will show a number of applications, what you can do, some use cases to give you some inspiration of how you can actually leverage generative AI in your LinkedIn activities. So before I go into the topic, let me kind of give you a brief update about what has been happening in the past weeks, months on generative AI. So as mentioned, we had a webinar in October. That was actually the moment when OpenAI, I think was even on the day that I did the webinar, that OpenAI announced the launch of GPTs, and quite some stuff has happened. A lot of tools have emerged, and this is, for instance, an overview that I use in my teaching. Yeah, so we see quite a number of generic generative AI tools that you can use for text generation, image generation, for search on the internet. I would say ChatGPT Pro, so the subscription version of ChatGPT, is definitely still the most functional tool. So if you ask me what is kind of the best return on investment, I would say ChatGPT Pro is at the moment still the best tool. If you want to use a tool without a subscription fee, I think something like Perplexity AI is actually a very, very nice tool to have, that you can search on the internet, upload files, and even upload pictures, even in that free version. So actually, I think if you want to choose among free versions, Perplexity AI is actually quite a good tool to experiment with. And it's not that well known. So in that way, if you have never heard about it, just go on internet to Perplexity AI, you can log in for free, and then you can experiment with it. As mentioned, so OpenAI has allowed for the creation of GPTs. Yes, so these are kind of specific applications that everybody can develop, leveraging large language models. OpenAI has its own GPTs, but every person, and I will give some examples today, can start developing their own GPTs. Recently, they launched the GPT Store, where you can kind of, like in an app store, find GPTs that might be interesting for you. So everybody can simply launch their GPTs in the store, and you can experiment with GPTs of other people. One kind of remark I want to make here, please be a bit careful, because there might be some security issues. When I experiment with these GPTs, I see that a lot of them have links or ask you to upload files or to download files. And there, to be honest, I think you need to be a bit careful, because people can also create these GPTs for malicious reasons, to try to get you into links where there are viruses and stuff like that. So in that way, I think it's nice to experiment with these GPTs, but I would also be a bit careful. So try to use GPTs that can be trusted. For instance, you have from Canva GPT, which is of course perfectly okay, but I think you need to be a bit careful there. Another, I think, important trend is that Microsoft has launched and integrated his Copilot in a lot of applications. So today already, with a private Microsoft account, you can take a subscription on Copilot Pro. And in that case, you can actually start using large language models and Copilot in all kinds of Office applications. Yeah? So then in Word, Microsoft Excel, you can start using Copilot. There are some very fancy demo videos about what you can do with it. To be very honest, I experimented in the past 2 weeks with Copilot Pro. The demos are not an adequate reflection of what is possible today. Today, I would say it's still in a very early minimal viable product stage. So you can do some nice stuff, but there are still a lot of problems, errors, So I think it definitely further needs to improve. But at least it gives you already an indication in which direction they are going. And I think in the end, it will be very exciting and it will trigger huge efficiency gains, but they are definitely not yet where they have to be, I would say. So it might be fun to do some first experiments, but don't have too many expectations with the current version. Okay, so that was very briefly a kind of update about what is happening. So what I want to do today is to show you kind of 3 use cases on how you can kind of combine generative AI and LinkedIn to do some nice stuff. And I want to give 3 illustrations. So first I will talk about how you can use generative AI as a LinkedIn writing assistant. So can you use it to help you to write a nice LinkedIn posts? Then I want to talk about how you can leverage LinkedIn for customer outreach with generative AI. And finally, I want to show you how you can start using LinkedIn as a kind of personal CRM system. So these are the 3 use cases I briefly want to illustrate. And again, if you have comments, questions, don't hesitate to put them in the Q&A. And then when I finished presenting the 3 use cases, we can come back to your questions. So let us start with quite a straightforward kind of use case. So many of you are active on LinkedIn. You want to write engaging posts, maybe for your own private life, but also maybe for your company. And here I have a use case of a company called Schutzgruppe. Schutzgruppe is what we call a hidden champion. So a company that is the global market leader in a very specific kind of product category. So this is a company actually here from the region in the Westerwald. And they are kind of the global market leader in industrial applications for plastic packaging. So maybe not the most sexy technology or product, but they are a clear market leader. And here you see a recent press release of Schutzgruppe where they have announced a new product. So the SC1 canister series, not the most high-tech product, but imagine that you're working at Schutzgruppe and that you're part of their marketing department and you are asked to write a LinkedIn post to announce this new product. So then we can go to ChatGPT and let us do that briefly. And we can start with a very straightforward prompt. So I will now show you the prompt that I did. So you could say, okay, you could say you are an expert in writing LinkedIn posts for making product announcements. I'm a market manager at Schutz who wants to announce the launch of your new jerry can. Then you can just copy paste the product description and you can ask it to write a LinkedIn post to announce the new jerry can for customers. Recent research actually showed that if you give ChatGPT a tip, a virtual tip, it will produce better outcomes. So here I give it a 20% tip for doing a good job. And then you see ChatGPT is able to make a first draft of a LinkedIn post. Now, I think a lot of you might have experienced that. That's also my experience. What you see a bit is that ChatGPT, when you ask it to write LinkedIn posts, gets a bit over enthusiastic. Yeah, it's like this American sales manager who thinks everything is awesome, everything is great, that is throwing with emojis. And that might be good for the American market, but for instance, for a German market, that might not be the right approach. Yeah? So you actually want to tone it down a bit. And actually a very nice approach to kind of tailor the voice of ChatGPT more to your particular wishes is to use what we call the slider approach. And let me show you what that means. So now I have this LinkedIn message, and now I can say, okay, please evaluate this LinkedIn post on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 means extremely formal and 10 means extremely informal. Yeah, so what is actually the voice that you have used in this LinkedIn post? Was it a very formal voice or a very informal voice? And then you can see that GPT here says, okay, I've written this post on a scale of 7, where 10 would be extremely informal. So he acknowledges it's a rather informal language that I used. And then you can simply say, okay, now please change the LinkedIn post to a scale of 3. So here we're actually pushing it on a slider from rather informal to more formal. And then you can see that ChatGPT is perfectly able to write the same LinkedIn post, but now in a much more professional, formal manner, which I think fits much better if you want to target like a German audience. So in this case, with the slider approach, you can very easily and very kind of carefully change the tone of the voice of LinkedIn. And so this is something that I use myself quite often to make sure that kind of the type of language that you're using reflects the audience that you want. And of course, you can define perfectly yourself how you define the slider. So here I did from very formal to very informal, but you could use another kind of continuum for your slider if you want to adjust it. So you can experiment with it. So this is quite, I would say, a very straightforward manner to drastically improve your ability to write LinkedIn posts with generative AI. Okay, so that was a kind of first use case to warm up, and nothing very sophisticated, but I hope this can actually be helpful, because that's my experience that a lot of people are struggling with getting ChatGPT having a voice that reflects the target market that you want to have. As a second use case that I want to demonstrate today, I want to show how you can combine generative AI and LinkedIn to do customized customer outreach. And as a use case, I use my own background. So at WHU, I'm also the academic director of our online MBA program. So that's an MBA program where we offer courses online so that people don't have to come to our campus, but they can follow the courses from their home, participate online. And for us in this online MBA, a very interesting target group are foreigners that are living in Germany. So people, expats that have started their professional career in Germany and that might want to do an MBA to kind of further grow in their professional career. So we have noticed that that's an interesting group for us. So once in a while, I try to do also some advertisements for our online MBA program to attract that kind of people. And of course, I want to kind of attract them by writing, for instance, a rather funny LinkedIn post that can attract their attention. So to get the inspiration for a funny LinkedIn post, I can go to ChatGPT and ask it to provide me some support. So in this case, and I will go immediately to the actual prompt. So in this case, I can ask ChatGPT to write for me some inspiration about how I could approach expats with some funny facts. And then you see ChatGPT has generated for me kind of some funny experiences that expats might have in Germany. It might be a bit stereotypical, but you can see here it's about precision and punctuality of Germans. It's about the long lunch mystery, about the challenges of the Betriebsrat, but I think a very interesting and funny one that I found was this heating ordeals in winter, navigating the complexities of office heating systems during the cold winters. And my own experience as a foreigner in Germany is indeed that Germans tend to have the tendency to open up windows to get fresh air, even if it's freezing cold outside, which for foreigners is sometimes quite peculiar. So I thought, okay, this is a funny approach to write a nice LinkedIn post. So that's then the next step that I did. So writing a LinkedIn post. So let me show you what we did. And so I started the LinkedIn post with, are you an expat in Germany who wants to further develop his or her career without facing another Fensterkrieg or Windows war? Then I'd consider our online MBA program. And I also added here a link that people can click on if they are interested. And in LinkedIn, if you have a Sales Navigator subscription, you can actually create what is called smart links so that you can also see who actually clicked on the link. And as you can see, also created with DALL-E a nice visual to accompany the LinkedIn post. Yeah, but so now imagine people have started clicking on the link, and I want to kind of generate a follow-up call with these people to give them more information and to kind of attract them into our funnel. So then I can start looking at the smart links, who has clicked on the links. And let us now take a theoretical case. So I've now created with ChatGPT a fake LinkedIn profile of somebody that is not existing. But so let's take the theoretical case where you have a person called Alex Rivera that is living in San Francisco, who clicked on the link. And so this would be a person that I want to approach for a virtual coffee chat to give a bit more explanation about our online MBA. And of course, I have a template email with some standardized paragraphs. But of course, when I reach out to this person, I want to make this email as personal as possible, as customized as possible. So that's why the second paragraph, based on his LinkedIn profile, I want to make as personal as possible. And of course, I have an overview of all the courses that we are offering in the program. And so I have an Excel sheet with the names of the courses and also kind of course description. So that's, of course, what I have. And so now we can use these documents to try to create a personalized email. And here I've used Claude AI as a tool, because Claude AI is very convenient when you want to upload files. So that's why I use this tool. So let me go briefly to the tool so that I can show you how it works. So in Claude AI, what did I do? So I uploaded a number of files. As you can see, I uploaded this standard outreach email. I uploaded the file with the course descriptions, and I uploaded the LinkedIn profile of this person, so 3 files. And then I wrote the following prompts saying, I want to write a customized email to invite Alex Rivera to have a virtual coffee chat about the global online MBA. I have attached a template for the invitation email, execute the following steps. And so then I ask it to kind of adjust this one paragraph and kind of give a customized description that could be attractive to the person. And maybe we can run it in real life. So let me do retry. And then it will start running, and then it will start generating this customized email, as you will see immediately. Yeah. So you see it starts with the paragraphs, the standard paragraphs, and then I expect that it now starts to generate a customized paragraph. And indeed, you see it now starts actually leveraging the LinkedIn information, and based on LinkedIn information, it tries to find courses that are relevant for this person. And in that way, I can kind of create a personalized email where it has been able to kind of connect the LinkedIn profile with optimal courses for this person. And this way you get a very nice, personalized, customized email with limited effort. So that's what you can do with this kind of approach. Now you can also further automate this. You see, I had to do a number of steps here. So what I also did was to create for me a personalized GPT. So this is a private GPT called the Email Customizer. And let me show you how it works. So this GPT is a kind of specific application that you now can create in ChatGPT. So this is my email customizer. And so when I now press start, the email customizer will ask me a question. Namely, it asks me information about my target. So now I have to, again, go and collect the information about this person. So I now have to briefly go into my files to get the LinkedIn profile of this person, which I will just copy paste. So I just now copy paste into this, into the GPT. I briefly now have to get back to my GPT. So I will now copy paste into my GPT the profile of the person. And now you will see again, this GPT will start generating a customized email. Yeah. Now you see here, for instance, it's not perfectly doing what I want. And that's always a bit of an issue with GPTs. To make them do exactly what you want is extremely difficult. But in general, again, you see it starts now kind of making this customized paragraph where it's referring to specific courses that could be interesting for the person. Yeah, but so here, of course, I would have liked that it mentions my name and not this thing, your name. But that sometimes happens when you use GPTs. But apart from that, you see it actually creates quite an extensive email with very specific information on which courses could be relevant for this person. So what is actually happening here behind the back? Did I do here very complex coding or something like that? No, actually not. So we can briefly look at what I exactly did. So this is kind of the configuration page of my GPT, where you have to give a name to your GPT and a description. And then you have to give a number of instructions. And again, this is not coding. You just write in natural language the instructions that you want to give to the GPT, what it should do and what it should execute. So I'm saying, okay, if the user prompt starts, you should ask this question. And subsequently, and here again, I'm emphasizing that it should create this customized email based on the information that I provided. And actually here in the backend, I already provide this outreach email and this course description as files that it can always access. So in that way, I don't have to upload them every time again. I only have to kind of provide the LinkedIn information, and then it is everything to immediately start generating this email. So this is a way in which you can generate these emails even more conveniently with a GPT approach. And I think this is kind of example where you can use it in a productive way. And I think this isn't harmful for anybody. If you then ignore my LinkedIn direct message, that's perfectly okay. But I also started thinking about how can you actually kind of abuse this kind of technology. And so I recently wrote a LinkedIn article to actually highlight how this kind of applications can really create problems, and especially think about the elections that we will having in Europe, the European elections, the US elections, how, of course, with this kind of applications, you can quite easily start spamming people, but even try to manipulate them to vote or feel kind of sympathetic for parties that normally would not be part of their kind of interest. And just to illustrate the issues here, I've developed another GPT called the Election Persuader. And so what does this GPT does? Again, it will ask for a LinkedIn profile, so we can briefly do that. And now I will use my own LinkedIn profile because I don't want to offend anybody. But so I will do start. And now again, the Election Persuader will ask me to give a LinkedIn profile. So now I will briefly go to my own LinkedIn profile. So let me do that. Yes, so here is my LinkedIn profile. So I will simply now copy paste my own profile, and we just do it like this, copy. And now I go to my Election Persuader. I paste my LinkedIn profile and I press send. And now what the Election Persuader will do is to actually write an email to me to explain why I should be interested in voting for the AfD, for the extreme right German party. Now I'm a foreigner living in Germany. I can tell you I'm not a logical target for the AfD. Yeah? So normally they would not have a positive perspective on me. But so now I created a GPT to say, okay, I will give you a LinkedIn profile and actually use the official manifesto of AfD to try to write a message to this person to convince this person why the AfD might actually be a relevant party for him or her. And so here you will see, I can briefly show you now what it did. And so it's actually referring to my extensive experience as entrepreneurship, and then say the AfD with commitment to a free and competitive market aligns closely with these principles. Yeah? So it's actually trying to illustrate why AfD has norms and values that are actually aligned with my profile. And if you look here at the text, you will see it clearly will not talk about foreigners, yeah? Although that's quite an important part of their policy program. But here it understood that in my particular case, based on my particular background, it should not have a kind of negative perspective on foreigners. So in that way, it was quite able to identify, okay, for this guy, I should not put too much bad things about foreigners. Yeah? As you see, again, this is a very straightforward GPT that I built in 10 minutes, so it's not extremely sophisticated. But even with this kind of small GPTs, you can already start creating quite sophisticated targeted emails. So you can imagine that people that have really the intention to kind of manipulate you, to convince people, can quite easily abuse this kind of tools, I think, for quite detrimental reasons. So I think we really need to start creating awareness for this kind of issues. So that's also why I wrote this kind of LinkedIn article, not to kind of promote my application, but rather show that there are some inherent risks that start to emerge, and we need to be very aware that this can happen nowadays. Okay, so then let me show you a third use case before we can go into the questions that you might have. So actually, a final use case that I want to show you is how you can start using generative AI to kind of turn LinkedIn into your personal CRM system. And here I want to highlight one particular interesting thing that I'm always a bit surprised that not that many people know it. But actually, if you go to LinkedIn, you can ask to get all the information that LinkedIn has about you. And they need to do that because of GDPR reasons. Yeah. So if you ask, like, give me an overview of all the posts that I've written, give me an overview of all the first connections that I have, give me an overview of all the direct messages that I've sent to people, LinkedIn is actually obliged to send you that information. And so if you go to your data privacy settings, you can actually ask it to send you a download of all these data. And then they will simply send you by email a zip file with a lot of Excel sheets that will provide all this information. And for instance, one of the slides will be, or one of the sheets will be, and I can show that here, that's my sheet, will be a sheet where you will get information about who are the people with whom you have first order connections. Yeah, so then you will get the name, their last name, their LinkedIn URL, sometimes an email address, the company where they're working, the position that they are having, and when you have been connected. Yeah. So you actually, in my case, I think I have like 8,000 first order connections. So this is an Excel file with 8,000 people, company name, their position. So that's already quite an interesting database. So now we can, of course, start using this database for whatever we want. For instance, maybe a first point, when I use this kind of data in OpenAI or other generative AI system, the first step that I always take is to anonymize the data, because we do not perfectly know what OpenAI does with the data that we provided. So I try to be here on the kind of careful side. So what I do is, instead of sending to OpenAI the data with the names of the people, I anonymize them and I just give them an ID number. So then when I send data to OpenAI, they don't have the kind of the names of the people, to kind of make sure that I'm working in a GDPR compliant manner. So I think that's always something to take into account. So creating an anonymized version always makes sense. And then, for instance, imagine that I need for our startup activities in the Entrepreneurship Center, I'm looking for mentors that can support startups that focus on sustainability topics. So out of these 8,000 people that I have, I want to get a list of people that can help startups on sustainability topics. So how can you do that? So let me show you how that works. So here we use a very specific tool in ChatGPT Pro. So again, here you need the subscription version, which is called the Data Analyst. So Data Analyst is a kind of plugin in ChatGPT Pro. And so when you have enabled the Data Analyst, you can upload a CSV file. And in this case, I upload the anonymous file. Yeah? So here I've anonymized the data. And then I can say, look, I'm looking for mentors that can support startups focusing on sustainability topics. Can you identify the most relevant people from the uploaded file? Please make sure to process the full file to identify the most relevant people. So that's the prompt that I've written. And what does this data analyst do? It will actually, it's actually a kind of translation tool. So you might know ChatGPT is quite good in translating between languages, from French to German, from German to English, whatever you want. And this is actually a translation tool where it will translate my instruction into Python code. So it's a translator of human language into coding to execute the instructions that I give. So what this data analyst will do is to try to transform my instructions into code and then to execute the code on my Excel file. So actually what you see here is it's trying to start processing my data. And actually here it faced a problem. So it started processing my data and it faced a problem. You see it says error analyzing. And then it says, okay, it appears there was an error because some entries are not texts, potentially they are null values. So let me try to adjust it. So I'm doing nothing. I'm just now reading what it is doing. And actually then here it is adjusting code to remove null values. And then it moves forward and then it has identified a number of people. So it says, okay, these 5 people might be relevant mentors. And actually then I asked it, okay, can you provide the ID number of these people and provide me an Excel document as output? And then it actually created for me an Excel file that I can download with a selection of people that can be mentors in my for the startups. And just to highlight what it does, so if you click on these things, you can actually see the code that it has written to execute the instructions. So this is a kind of code generator where it tries to translate your instructions into code and then immediately execute code. And of course, if you know coding, you can also replicate all the steps to double check. So that way, this is a very valuable tool. And just to show you then what is the outcome. So the outcome is indeed this Excel file that I received from OpenAI with the idea number, the company where the person is working, the position. And then, of course, I can, based on the idea number, check in my own files who is the actual person that I should connect with. So this is a very easy way to kind of quickly filter out people from your extensive list of connections on LinkedIn that could help you for a certain activity, a certain task, or that could be a relevant co-investor or whatever. So I think in that way, you can actually use this initial file that you get from LinkedIn as the kind of start of a personal CRM system. And then every time when you need to find people, you can use the data analysis tool to identify the relevant people that you can approach. And also here, we have developed a GPT to kind of automate that. So we have created the connection expert. And just again, let me show you how it works. So in this case, again, same procedure. So let me go up. So if I do start, it will actually ask me to give it data about my connections. Then I have again uploaded my anonymous list. And then it can again, in this case, what was the instruction that I gave it? Here I said, okay, I'm looking for a mentor for a health tech startup. That was the instruction. And then automatically it will start again using the data analysis tool in the backend to start identifying people that could be interesting mentors for a health tech startup. Yeah. So here it's saying, okay, these 5 people out of your list can be helpful persons to do so. Again, and just to show you that this is not very complex to create. So if we go to my instructions, so you see here, I have written the instructions. So it's like 3, 4, 5, so like 10 lines of text that I've given it to help me in creating this connection expert. And again, there's no coding involved. It's simply writing some instructions to make it do what it needs to do. And so here as tools, it can use a number of tools. And here especially code interpreter was important. And code interpreter is a different name for this data analyst function. Yeah? So this code interpreter allows this GPT to transform instructions into Python code and execute the code, which was necessary for this GPT. So that's what is happening in the background. And just to show you again that if you have very specific applications, if you want to automate a particular task, it's actually quite straightforward to write a GPT, give it some specific instructions and start using it. And of course, you can choose whether you want to share that with the public, but you can also create private GPTs that only you yourself can use. So that's up to you to decide. Okay, so these were actually 3 use cases that I wanted to show you about how you can nowadays use generative AI in combination with LinkedIn to create some interesting use cases. And it's just to give you some inspiration about what can we do today with LinkedIn and generative AI. As mentioned also in the prior webinars, if you want to learn more, if you really want to go in depth, we are also organizing an online bootcamp. So we will do the 3rd run of the bootcamp in March. And in this bootcamp, we do 3 sessions of 2 hours where I will give much more use cases, examples, prompting strategies, tools on how you can use generative AI for business applications. Yeah, so this bootcamp is not to give a kind of overall introduction into generative AI. It's really about how can you use generative AI today for very specific use cases in your daily professional life. So if you're interested, you can always go to our website to check it out. We will also send to everybody the slides and the recording of this session. So there you will also have the link to the online bootcamp if you would be interested. Okay, that's what I wanted to share. So I think we now still have some time left for some questions that might have emerged. So Niklas, I will give you the floor to kind of
Perfect. Yeah.
identify some questions that we can discuss.
As always, I would go case-based, and I think most of the questions were revolving around case 2, the proactive outreach for the online MBA. I think there was a question by Anya too, how to conduct the outreach if you're not approaching a person but a company, given that there's less information available on LinkedIn. And she's also wondering how to reach out to people that have limited background information on their LinkedIn.
Yeah, so I think for the first one, for companies, of course, nowadays, most companies have a LinkedIn profile, so that could be a first source to get information. But of course, there are a lot of other databases where you can get much more information about companies. For instance, think about in Germany, the Handelskammer. That's a kind of open source that you don't have to pay for that, where you can search for companies and where you actually will get also even financial information on the company, which might be helpful. But of course, you can also just do a Google search and go to the website of the company, copy paste information from the website, put it into a file and do the same approach. Yeah? So LinkedIn is just one way to collect data, but I think there are quite different ways. The same for individuals. So if individuals don't have an extensive LinkedIn profile, you could also, again, use, for instance, so Bing Chat and ask Bing Chat a prompt like, okay, I need to find additional information about this person that is working in this company in this function. And then actually Bing Chat will do an internet search, collect information about the person and gives you a kind of description that you then can again use to write a customized email. So LinkedIn is only one data source, but you can be as creative as you want in collecting alternative data. So that should not be a big issue, I would think.
Perfect, thank you. Hassal Öztürk is wondering if the email customizer is available in the store. And he was also wondering if this GPT automatically evolves over time. So whenever you use it, basically it becomes more intelligent to your requests.
No, so this GPT is not available because I have tailored it to my specific use case. Yeah, so it has this course description and email templates in the backends, and of course for other people that's not relevant. So that's a GPT we have not shared. And does it get smarter over time? No. So it's not really learning. And again, and let me be transparent here. It's always a bit trial and error with these GPTs. Yeah. So when I try to build a GPT, you write some instructions, then you try it out. Most of the time, it will not immediately work. So it doesn't really do what you wanted. So you have to play a bit with your instructions, fine-tune it, experiment until it works. So you also need to get a bit of an intuition for which kind of instructions work well, which kind of instructions don't work well. So it's a bit trial and error. So I've never had that from the first time it perfectly works. I always had to fine tune a bit. So in that way, that is sometimes a bit time consuming, but in the end, with some experimentation, it always works out in the end.
What really helped for me is also using GPT itself in order to redefine my description for the GPT. So that
yeah. That's a very meta approach.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There was another question by Anya too, who was wondering how to use this email outreach tool on a scale so that you don't have to basically customize it to each individual.
Let me briefly then, let me reshare my screen briefly. I just want to show it briefly. I will not go too deep in it because then we go a bit into coding, but just to give a bit of a feeling what is possible. So I will now go actually to the developer platform of AI. So let me try to run that. So now we are in the developer platform. Yeah? So this is the platform where you use OpenAI in your coding. And to use that, you also need to have an API key. Yeah, so here we need to go a bit into the coding. But so if you want to use this at scale, you can create in this platform what is called assistants. And so assistants is, again, these are kind of GPTs that you can give instructions. Yeah? You see here actually all kinds of assistants that we are developing. And these assistants you can subsequently use in coding. Yeah? And so what you can do then in coding is to create a loop where you say, look, here are 100 people, and then you simply execute the assistant on 100 people. And then it will write 100 customized emails from you in one single iteration. So with an assistant, and then embedding it into your coding, you can do this on scale. But then here we get at a point where we cross the border where you need to have coding knowledge to do so. So here we can no longer use the normal interface. Here we really need to engage into the coding. But so it's perfectly possible, but you need to have some coding background here.
Perfect. Thank you. Then I would move to the third case, the personal CRM system. Also here, Anja was wondering how to use the tool to connect with people that you are not yet connected with.
Yeah, of course. Then you have to kind of find the information on the persons in a different way. Then you will not get from LinkedIn this overview. So then you can say, okay, you simply search them on LinkedIn, copy paste their profile and put it in a database. So then it will be a bit more challenging. Or you have a fancy scraping tool that allows you to do that. There, of course, you also have to check a bit what is legally allowed and not. And so then that way that's possible. For instance, also, again, so you receive from LinkedIn this Excel sheet with some information. Of course, you can now, based on other information that you have on the people, enrich this Excel sheet with additional information. For instance, when did I meet this person? What did we discuss in the past with this person? So you can start kind of enriching your Excel file. And in that way, of course, the matches that you can make will even be improved. Yeah? So that this is just a starting point. If you really want to build a very rich CRM system, it might make sense to combine it with other data sources, collect additional data on these people. So then when you do a search and you want to identify specific people, that you get even better matches. That's, I think, possible. And so what I showed is a kind of very kind of first step to take. But of course, you can make this much more professional and extensive.
Clear. I think Brian has a similar question. He's wondering if it's possible somehow with AI to find out where the connection was made. I'm assuming that LinkedIn doesn't provide this info, but...
No, so LinkedIn, the file that you receive from LinkedIn only indicates when the connection was made, yeah, on which date. Again, if you want to, then I think you need to kind of collect that information in a different way and add it to the Excel, and then you can again further build your CRM system. Yeah.
Perfect. Then we have a few more general questions. I think Patrick was wondering if you have some advice for improving your own LinkedIn profile using AI.
It's a nice suggestion. Actually, I've not tried it. So that would actually be a nice experiment to do. There, for instance, I would expect that somebody has already built a GPT for that. So there you could go to the GPT store and see if you can find a GPT for LinkedIn profile optimization, and then you just search like you search the App Store. I could imagine that somebody has developed already something like that. I didn't think about it, so it's a nice suggestion. So I would expect that somebody has thought about it. If not, it might actually be a nice experiment for this person to try to build a GPT him or herself. Might be actually quite a popular GPT.
I actually remember that there was already some solutions out there even before GPT was becoming popular that kind of automatically analyze your profiles and provide you some recommendations to improve it. So probably these have become much better now. Nicole was wondering if Claude AI is worth it or if it's better to use Perplexity.
Yeah, so Claude AI and Perplexity AI both have advantages and disadvantages, and they're both free to use. Huh? So they both have a free version that is much better than the free ChatGPT. The problem with Claude AI nowadays is that it's very difficult to access as a European. So actually, when I became a member, you just needed, at the point when you registered, you needed to have a VPN with the US. Yes, so you needed to be able to pretend that you were in the US, and then it worked, and now I can use it whatever I want. Nowadays, they actually ask for a US phone number that you need to validate. And I think most of us don't have that. So at the moment, it's actually quite difficult to get access to Claude AI. So that's the only limitation. Perplexity AI, simply you need to go to their website, log in, and you can start using it. So that's, for me at the moment, if you think about free options, if you want to search the internet and be able to upload files, that's a bit of kind of the best free tool that is out there. Still, ChatGPT Pro has much more functionality, is much better, but of course that implies a subscription.
Perfect. Then we have one question on the WHU program, and the question here is basically if the WHU program is going to help you apply different AI tools step by step. So if that is part of the program.
Yeah, so there we go much more step by step. There we talk about prompting strategies, how to use external data, how to do fine tuning, but again, how to use these GPTs. And there I also try, of course, to show you a bit what are the different tools that you can use for different use cases, the advantages and disadvantages. So there we have a bit more time. In total, we have like 6 hours. So there we can go a bit deeper. And there we also do some small exercises with the participants to get them immediately a kind of first feeling about what is possible, but also about the limitations. And so again, these things do not always work perfectly. So it always is a bit trial and error. And that's also something you need to get a feeling for. Yeah? So you need to kind of start to get an intuition, like which kind of prompts do work, how can I make good instructions for a GPT? So that's typically what we try to do in the online bootcamp.
Sounds very good. We have 2 more questions that I can see from Alexandra Isa. If you can connect the LinkedIn recruiter to the AI to do a better searches for new leads.
Yeah, so we also use LinkedIn Recruiter, where you can indeed do much more kind of targeted searches. Is it easy to connect to AI? No. In general, LinkedIn is kind of very restrictive in giving you access to their data. So in LinkedIn Recruiter, what we simply do is then also with copy paste, select profiles out of it and then use them into ChatGPT and first anonymize them again to make sure that you're not violating GDPR issues. So it definitely has some opportunities, but is it very user-friendly? No. Yeah. But that's simply because LinkedIn is very restrictive in giving access to the data.
Clear. I think for the next question might also be that somebody already developed a GPT. The question is basically how you can get the best hashtags to reach the right audience in each post.
Yeah, and you even see that if you prompt a LinkedIn post in ChatGPT, most of the time it will give you hashtags as suggestions. Whether they are the best ones, that's a different. So what I sometimes do is then also kind of do an additional prompt saying, can you optimize this LinkedIn for SEO? And then it tends to kind of adjust the LinkedIn posts to make it more SEO friendly. So there again, you can experiment a lot. And again, I would expect that also here, there are some GPTs that can help you in that respect. Yeah, so I think that's definitely possible.
Okay, and then we just received a new question. Can I use ChatGPT to assist in organizing personal data for my LinkedIn contacts, similar to maintaining a private database that can only be accessed by me?
Yes. So again, with this data analyst, you can kind of work on your database and organize your personal data. The only thing, so what I said before is I always anonymize it. The moment I kind of upload the data in OpenAI, I'm not sure what OpenAI does with the data. They claim they're not using that, but I'm not sure. So I'm there a bit careful and I anonymize my data before I enter them into OpenAI. So that's a bit of kind of inconvenience that I use to kind of avoid issues. So I think everybody has to make its own decision there. But apart from that, I think with this data analyst tool, with the code interpreter, you can very nicely organize it in all different ways. So there, I think you have quite some options.
Great. I think we have time for one more question. Let me check. There was one question by Thomas. If you think that the connection expert will at one point be able to dive into the LinkedIn profiles.
I don't think so, because simply LinkedIn is very restrictive there. It might be that LinkedIn itself will start generating this kind of application, so that in the LinkedIn environment, you will be able to do that. That Recruiter or Sales Navigator will give you functionalities like that. That might happen, but otherwise, I think it will not happen. It's even today, for instance, if you use Bing Chat or Perplexity AI, you can search the internet. And indeed, you can also do a prompt search for the LinkedIn profile of Dries Vaams. And then in the first of 3 runs, it will provide the LinkedIn profile. But if you do that prompt like 5 times, then it will stop providing information. So then LinkedIn already identifies, oh, there is somebody trying to get a lot of LinkedIn profiles from me, and it stops. So in that way, it's clear that there are quite some restrictions there that LinkedIn already implemented to avoid that you can scrape LinkedIn profiles using ChatGPT or Perplexity AI or whatever tool. So there it's clear that they want to avoid that kind of stuff.
Makes sense. I think we covered all the questions, so I would hand it back to you for a closing statement.
Yeah, I think that's perfect timing. So it's almost 9 o'clock, so I don't think we also want to make it later. So I would say thank you for your attention. I hope that we at least were able to give you some inspiration about how you can use generative AI for LinkedIn. And again, if you're interested in the online bootcamp, don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm always willing to give more information about what we exactly do there. And don't hesitate to follow us on LinkedIn. There we always share a bit kind of the updates about what we are doing with ChatGPT and generative AI. So that way we also try to kind of build a community on this topic. So thanks for attending. I hope you learned something, and look forward to talk to you the next time.